What's good, everybody? You are locked into Kingdom Keys with yours truly, the real AG, here on the Lockdown Defense Sports Network. This is where we break down everything red and gold from Arrowhead to the AFC throne. Well, I guess to put a little bow on what we saw in Week 11, last week I said it was an exciting time. That's quickly become crunch time for the Kansas City Chiefs as they really are have their backs against the wall at this point and cannot afford to lose any more games. Sitting at 5-5 record wise, and 3.5 games back for the AFC West lead. So, yeah, quite literally, it is crunch time. So, just getting right into it. Post game reactions, looking at that Week 11 AFC West matchup. The Chiefs ultimately did not prevail, lost 22-19 in the last second field goal heartbreaker to division rival the Denver Broncos. Again, close, hard fought game, but another loss that we've seen for the Chiefs in this one score type setting. They are 0-5 in those type of games this season. They were 11-0 in those last season. And, looking back at the Kingdom Keys I noted last week for this game, the Chiefs were not really able to be successful in a lot of them. There was, a lot of missed opportunities. You had the missed opportunity on the extra point. Mahomes hit Kelsey late in the fourth quarter for the go-ahead touchdown at that point. Chance to really put the game somewhat out of reach, but the extra point was blocked. Perhaps maybe some poetic justice for how a certain game ended last year. If you know, you know. But that, ultimately the Chiefs were up by 3 points rather than just 4 at that point. We saw the late game execution by Denver's offense. I said it all last week. They needed to make this Bo Nix go beat us type of game. And to his credit, he did go do that. He made some big plays, which is not really what we had seen from him against better defenses this season. He had, a big third down conversion on a 3rd and 15. He hit Troy Franklin on a 32-yard pass that ultimately got him into scoring position. And, Denver at the end of the game was able to bleed most of the clock before kicking the game-winning field goal. And, like I said, to Bo Nix's credit, he showed a composure in that high-pressure moment, really, and won the critical moment, like I said, Kansas City needed to do. We had a Mahomes turnover in the red zone. He threw a pick in the third quarter, which ultimately killed the scoring opportunity and shifted momentum. There was poor third down execution late in the game. KC went 3 and out twice in key moments later in the game, once when they had the lead and again when the game was tied. And then on the defensive, the decisive Denver drive for the defense, the Chiefs defense failed to get the big stop on third down where Bo Nix hit Cortland Sutton on 3rd and 15 and ultimately let him sustain the drive. As for the extra point, taking that aside, it was a special teams letdown. Denver was 5 for 5 on their field goal attempts. And, like we expected in an AFC West matchup, the special teams played a big role, pivotal role, really, in swinging the outcome and momentum of the game. Big thing, I think, has been the big thing all year is just there was a complete lack of the run game. Kansas City ran the ball 14 times, once with Mahomes, so 13 with Kareem Hunt, and that was it. And that's just really not something that you just can't do that against a defense like the Denver Broncos, a defense that leads the league in sacks, that thrives on creating pressure. And when you're not running the ball and keeping them honest, I mean, they have no respect for that. You've seen that at times, like defenses have no respect for the Chiefs' rushing attack right now, and they keep trying to do these under center play actions or different sets with a play action that doesn't really carry much weight or keep the defense honest when you're not really running the ball. So again, just the lack of the running game, I think, played a factor. Even to start the game, instead of coming out to try to set a tone and run the ball, they took 3 deep shots and went 3 and out and just were not able to connect to really get things going early. On top of that, we just had consistency and clutch performance issues. The offense mostly, but the defense at times, have seemed to kind of lose their swagger or the aura that they've had in years past, struggling to close out close games. unable to really have that explosive juice, pause if needed there, that the Kansas City Chiefs offense has had in years past. Couldn't really hit anything deep, like I said, not until later in the game. But that component has not really been in this Chiefs offense since Tyreek left. Whether it's just they have the speed guys there, Mahomes has just not been able to build chemistry or their trust with him, or he doesn't trust his line enough to stay in the pocket and let those plays develop. But I mean that's a big issue right now, and you couple that with just them not running the ball. I mean the defenses can kind of limit the game, and you know come up big time in big moments. But with that being said, I like to be the cautiously optimistic type. So there were some positives from the game. I mean, we got solid play out of two aging vets and Travis Kelce and Chris Jones. I mean, Kelce had 9 catches, 91 yards, and like I said, a touchdown. Jones got a sack and was wreaking havoc for most of the game. Unfortunately, just unable to come up big time when we needed it most. On that final Denver drive, but for the most part, most of the game, those two were playing great, which is what you want to see at this time of year. Casey's run defense continues to be stellar, if not damn near elite. I mean, they held a pretty respectable, and I get it, to Broncos fans out there. J.K. Dobbins was out, so new regime, if you will, back there. But they held a respectable Denver rushing attack to 59 yards on 21 carries. Their longest run of the day was an 8-yard run by Bo Nix. We saw some production out of these young secondary players. You got Chris Roland Wallace, and Shamari Connor. They had 15 tackles combined. Connor got to Nix early in the game on a blitz. So you love to see that from kind of the new faces on the defensive side of the ball. Like I kind of prefaced talking about the deep ball concerns, we did still see that Thornton Mahomes connection still there. They were able to connect on a 61-yard catch on 3rd and 7, which set up the Chiefs' first touchdown of the day. So that's good. And then rookie left tackle Josh Simmons, was away for some personal issues, returned, was up in the air if he'd play or not. Ultimately did play, and got to give him credit. He looked pretty solid against an elite defense, an elite pass rush, and even looked pretty good in the run game. What limited work he had in that, but that's at least something to kind of hang your hat on. That their hopeful rookie stalwart left tackle is starting to look the part and was able to jump right back in and look great. So, like I said, I mean, the Chiefs have their backs against the wall at this point. They really can't lose any more games if they're going to be in the playoff hunt, which is just crazy to say in this Mahomes Reed era. But as we get into this next game, this Week 12 matchup, I mean, it is an exciting time for the Chiefs because we are going to find out exactly what this team's made of. Like, is this roster enough to continue doing what they've been doing? Or are they going to have to, take a step back at the end of this year and a hard look in the mirror and make some tough decisions to get this thing back on the right track consistently and stop this run it back approach with the roster and sort of stop gapping pieces here and there because it's worked in the past. So, we're going to find out what this team's made of here this week and the rest of the season because, I mean, every week's a playoff game at this point for this team. So, before we get into our next matchup, just to quickly go over the injury updates as we're approaching Week 12 and preparing for that matchup. We do have Isaiah Pacheco, been out for a few weeks now with an MCL sprain. He's still listed as questionable for Week 12. I got to say, probably not looking too great when you consider the fact that he has not practiced in any capacity yet. They tried to trade for Breece Hall. I think they kind of know he's going to be out for longer than what was originally represented. And then, unfortunate player down in that Broncos loss, we did have left guard Kingsley Suamataia. He was ruled out with a concussion. Currently listed as questionable for Week 12, but as everyone knows, you just got to see how he goes through the protocol. But I like to think if he'll make it through because they're not as strenuous with offensive linemen, I feel like, and I think he'll make it through and be back out there against Indy, which they will need him for this game. So that's kind of the injury report on the Chiefs right now. And as I've been prefacing, we're going to get into what's ahead, the upcoming matchup. We got a Week 12 showdown, Colts versus Chiefs. at home in Arrowhead, and somehow Chiefs are still the favorite at 3.5 points. But they are facing off against Indiana Jones and the AFC South leading Colts, sitting at 8-2. Still the highest scoring offense the Colts are in the NFL right now, despite coming off of their bye weekend. Like I said, it looks like even with their back against the wall, and as I've said in the past, you can't count out the champs are a team on a dynastic run until they show that they can't do that. So Vegas clearly feels that way with this betting line. Um, but yeah, we'll find out what they're made of. So quickly, just going over the Colts injuries, they don't really have any big key players that are new injuries. I mean, obviously DeForest Buckner's out. They have a few other defensive guys on the IR, but that's old news. Just looking at sort of the players that might not be in the mix for Week 12, you got defensive end, and some of these guys have been out for a while, I should preface, but we got Samson Ibukum, the D end with a knee injury, hasn't played since Week 7, but he is listed as questionable. Another D end, Tyquan Lewis, he has a groin injury, also hasn't played since Week 7, but is listed as questionable. Wide receiver Anthony Gould, he has a knee injury, he hasn't played since Week 8, but he's listed as questionable. Charvarius Ward, the old Chief, he is currently on the IR, eligible to come off the IR with a concussion, but we have no firm update on whether that's happening in Week 12. And then linebacker Jalen Carlisle's with an ankle injury, he's also eligible to come off the IR and hasn't played all season. But we'll see. Like I said, the big names, their O line's intact, Jonathan Taylor's intact, Daniel Jones, Indiana Jones, whatever you want to call him, he's intact. Their receiving core seems to be intact, and most of the pieces they've had on defense all year seem to be there. So it will be the full force of the Colts against what I hope is the full force of the Chiefs. And again, a back against the wall, must-win game for Kansas City, as that's what every game is from here on out. But getting into my kingdom keys for Week 12, first and foremost, we got to stop the run or at least contain it as best they can. Like I said, Kansas City's run defense has been pretty elite all year. Really in the Spags era, they've been pretty solid against the run. Everyone knows the run that Jonathan Taylor is on. He is on an ungodly tear right now. This somewhat plays into the Chiefs' defensive strengths. Like I said, they're good against the run. Indy has shown at times that they're vulnerable, and especially in those two losses when the run game is not all the way there and Daniel Jones is forced to do more, good things can happen for the opposing defense. So, that has to be priority 1, 2, and 3 for the Chiefs defense is contain Jonathan Taylor as best they can and, force Daniel Jones to have to do more, probably open up, him to do some more hero ball types ish and create more turnover worthy opportunities. So, that's the most important thing. And then I think for the Chiefs offensively, there's a few things they got to do, to win this game. At first and foremost, I think they got to exploit the Colts defensive weaknesses. And that's really in the pass game. They're 25th right now in pass yards allowed. And I think the Chiefs offense should be able to do more of what they're good at, creating mismatches in zone coverage, stretching the Colts defense and creating voids, through sort of those underneath type routes that they like to run with Rice and Worthy and Kelsey. And I think that in turn would help generate more big plays, which they're clearly trying to do, as we've seen in the way they come out in some of these recent games. So, that will definitely help if like I said, plays into their strength a little bit. But to do that stuff, they must establish a run game. They got to lean into their run game more. They got to be more married to the run. They cannot just run it twice, abandon it, and come back to it later. Like that's always been the problem in losses for this Mahomes run Chiefs team. When they're not really married to the run game throughout the game, it's, a lot of bad stuff can happen. So, they need to lean on that more. They need to mix in some more misdirection with the run, whether that's screens, sweeps, whatever. But you got to take advantage of this Colts aggressiveness on defense and, just help open things up down the field more by them having to be more committed and respecting the Chiefs' run game. And like I said, that just helps play into the weakness of the Colts defense, which is their passing, and will help them set up play action more and just open things up. This one, more of a John Madden type key again, but they got to win on special teams. You cannot have special teams blunders get in the way of scoring or taking the lead or ruining field position, which is what we've seen time and time again throughout this season. So they just absolutely cannot have that. It's a big Dave Tobe, your job might be on the line type situation now. They got to pressure Daniel Jones, but they need to be smart about it. They need to mix their looks more rather than just blitzing full speed every time. A lot more disguised pressure packages and well-timed rushes to get Daniel Jones kind of freaking out and force more mistakes. I mean, you just can't let Indy identify their blitzes like Denver did later in that game. I mean, you saw Chris Jones talk about it. You've seen the clips. Like they knew when blitzes were coming, made adjustments, and were able to get stuff done. And this Colts offense is known to be a physical one. So Kansas City needs to prioritize collapsing the pocket, but without overcommitting to it. Because as turnovers are going to be huge in this game, and if Kansas City can force a turnover or two, or at least more negative plays, and get Indy into more long third and downs, you just exert more control over the game. The last or second to last key here, need to be aggressive. Like I said, I mean, backs against the wall, you got to play like there is nothing to lose, because they're quite literally, I mean, you got the whole season to lose, I guess, at this point, and not making the playoffs, and everyone just raining on the parade. So they got to be aggressive. They've been pretty solid all year in their fourth down decision making. They need to use that to their advantage, especially in short yardage and or when the momentum's building in the game. I think that could be the lever to swing this game ultimately, when it's all said and done. So they need to be aggressive at all times on the offensive side of the ball and be smart about it. And then another John Madden type key to round things out. But we got to win the turnover battle, and we got to limit mistakes. They got to take care of the football, always vital, but especially against a team that can be opportunistic and very high scoring at times on the offense. So, I mean, Kansas City really needs to, goals should be every game is always no turnovers, but they need to have known or, minimize the giveaways and capitalize on any Colts errors. And, this would really include smart decision making in those critical moments, third downs, red zones, situations, things like that. So those are my keys to beating the Colts in Week 12, which the Kansas City Chiefs must do. And as you guys have probably guessed at this point, if you've been keeping up with the content, I'm going to ride with my squad in a must-win game to right the ship and get things back on track and have an exciting, 5 more weeks to round out the season and see where things get. So I am predicting the Chiefs to win 27-20, which ironically has also been the same score in both of the Colts' 2 losses this year. So we're riding with that. But that rounds out our Kingdom Keys for Week 12, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you like this content and want to talk Chiefs ball with me, there's my information on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to get at our other insiders, the Lockdown Defense Sports Network, there's their info. If you like this content and want to find more, we're anywhere and everywhere your smartphone will take you. But in terms of this video, please hit that like button. Chiefs Kingdom, let me hear from you on this game. What are we feeling? Is there stuff you feel like I missed? Are other things we need to be worried about, or how are we feeling? What's the vibe? Let me hear from you in the comments section. And as always, please be sure to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss out on any more Kingdom Keys or any of the other great content that we're dropping each and every day. But in the meantime, in between time, I am the real AG. This is Kingdom Keys, and let's go Chiefs, baby.